Every morning for the past 3 years, Harold Mitchell has visited his wife Grace's grave. It's a quiet ritual, just him, fresh flowers, and memories of their 50 years together. But today is different. As he walks the familiar path through Oakwood Cemetery, he sees someone standing by Grace's headstone, a woman. As he gets closer, his heart nearly stops. He recognizes her silver hair, her gentle stance, the tilt of her head. It's Katherine Reynolds, his first love, the girl who vanished without explanation in 1973. She turns, their eyes meet, and suddenly he's 18 again, feeling that same flutter in his chest. She's been carrying a secret all these years, one that will change everything. But what would Grace think about the love of her life finding his first love at her grave? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Harold's morning begins the same way it has for the past 3 years. He wakes before dawn, when the world is still quiet and the memories are strongest. The leather journal sits on his nightstand where it's always been. Grace's daily thoughts, bound in worn brown leather, a chronicle of their life together. He runs his fingers over the cover, feeling the familiar grooves and scratches before reaching for his reading glasses. The bedroom remains exactly as Grace left it, her pillow still indented from years of use, her robe hanging on the hook by the door, even her reading light positioned just so. Their children, Sarah and Michael, have suggested changes, gentle hints about moving forward, but Harold can't bring himself to disturb this carefully preserved museum of their life together. He opens the journal, finding today's date 3 years ago. Grace's handwriting flows across the page, steady despite her illness. Another beautiful morning. The birds are particularly chatty today. Harold's making breakfast. I can smell the coffee and toast. How many mornings have we shared like this? Thousands, I suppose. Yet each one feels like a gift. The words blur as Harold's eyes fill with tears. He blinks them away, adjusting his glasses. The chain around his neck feels heavy, Grace's wedding ring resting against his chest. He's worn it there since the funeral, unable to put it away with her other things. Downstairs, he goes through the motions of their morning routine. 2 cups of coffee, though only one will be drunk. Toast with strawberry jam, Grace's favorite. The morning paper, folded just the way she liked it. The habits of 50 years don't easily fade. Sarah calls right on schedule. Dad? Just checking. In. I'm fine, sweetheart. The same conversation they have every morning. You're going to the cemetery? Of course. A pause. He can hear her concern through the silence. Maybe you could skip today. We could have breakfast instead. Sarah, I know, Dad, I know, I just worry. Your mother worried too much as well. He smiles despite himself. Must run in the family. After hanging up, Harold finishes his coffee and picks up the fresh flowers from the counter. White roses as always. But as he reaches for his coat, something stops him. The last page of Grace's journal, the one he's never been able to bring himself to read. For 3 years it's remained closed, a final conversation he wasn't ready to have. Today feels different. Perhaps it's the changing season, or Sarah's worried voice, or simply time doing its slow work. Whatever the reason, Harold finds himself turning to that last page. My dearest Harold, it begins, and his heart catches. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. Knowing you, it's taken you some time to get here. You always did need to process things in your own way. That's one of the countless things I've loved about you. The words swim before him. He has to sit down, the journal trembling in his hands. And when you're ready, truly ready, I want you to know that it's okay to find happiness again. Our love story has been everything I could have dreamed of and more, but your heart has always had so much love to give. Don't let it end with me. The morning light streams through the kitchen window, catching the dust motes in its beam. Somewhere outside, birds are singing, just as they were that morning 3 years ago. Harold touches the ring hanging from his neck, feeling its familiar warmth. "Time to go see her," he whispers to the empty kitchen. He doesn't know it yet, but this morning's visit will be different from all the others. Katherine Reynolds is waiting at the cemetery. Though neither of them planned it this way, sometimes life writes stories we could never imagine for ourselves. Katherine Reynolds sits in her parked car outside Oakwood Cemetery, her hands tight on the steering wheel. A faded photograph lies on the passenger seat, her and Harold at the county fair in 1973, young and laughing, cotton candy stuck to their fingers. She's kept it all these years, through marriage, divorce, careers and continents. Now at 68, she's finally brought it home. The local paper's obituary section sits beside the photo, folded to Grace Mitchell's death notice from 3 years ago. Katherine had found it during one of her late-night internet searches, the kind she'd been doing for years, keeping tabs on the life she left behind. Grace Mitchell, beloved wife of Harold. The words had stopped her heart for a moment. She hadn't planned to come back to Millbrook. Hadn't planned any of this, really. But after her retirement from teaching last month, the walls of her empty Seattle apartment had started closing in. All those carefully constructed reasons for staying away had crumbled, leaving only the truth. She'd never stopped loving Harold Mitchell. The morning fog rolls through the cemetery, softening the edges of the headstones. Katherine checks her reflection in the rearview mirror, silver hair neat, makeup subtle, the lines around her eyes telling stories of both laughter and tears. She touches the small scar on her left hand, remembering the day she got it. July 14th, 1973. Harold had been teaching her to skip stones on Miller's Pond. She'd slipped, cut her palm on a sharp rock. He'd wrapped his handkerchief around it so tenderly, then kissed her fingertips one by one. That was 2 weeks before she left. The memory of that day, of all their days, weighs heavy in her chest. She takes out an old train ticket from her purse, the paper soft with age. August 1st, 1973, New York City. They were supposed to go together, 2 small-town kids with big dreams. She'd bought the tickets months in advance, planning their escape. But then a car door slams nearby, startling her from her reverie. Through the fog, she sees a familiar figure walking the cemetery path, flowers in hand. Harold, even after 47 years. She'd know his walk anywhere. A little slower now, perhaps, but still with that slight swing to his right shoulder. That careful way of placing each foot. Katherine's breath catches. She hadn't meant to come this early, hadn't meant to see him, not yet. She'd only wanted to visit Grace's grave to... what? Apologize. Ask permission. She's not sure anymore. But now Harold is getting closer, and the years are falling away like autumn leaves. She finds herself opening the car door, stepping out into the cool morning air. Her legs carry her forward without conscious thought, following a path set in motion decades ago. The fog parts between them. She sees the moment he recognizes her, the slight stumble in his step, the widening of his eyes. For a heartbeat, they're both 18 again, standing in the summer sunshine, full of dreams and promises. Then reality settles back in. They're not teenagers anymore. This isn't 1973. And the woman Harold loved, truly loved, married, built a life with, lies in the grave between them. Katherine's secret, the one she's carried all these years like a stone in her heart, threatens to spill from her lips. But not yet. Some truths need time, need the right moment. And this moment belongs to the look in Harold's eyes. A look that makes her wonder if maybe, just maybe, not everything was lost to time after all. Neither of them speaks first. The morning mist swirls around their feet as they stand at Grace's grave, the white roses trembling slightly in Harold's grip. A cardinal calls from somewhere in the fog, its song cutting through the silence. Katherine. Her name feels strange on his lips after so many years. Harold. She takes a small step forward, then stops. I wasn't sure you'd remember me. A sound escapes him. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. Remember you? His free hand unconsciously moves to his pocket, where an old train ticket has lived for 47 years. He's never been able to throw it away. That would be like trying to forget how to breathe. Catherine's eyes drift to the headstone. She was beautiful, Grace. I saw her picture in the paper. Yes, she was. Harold kneels to place the roses, his movements careful and practiced. Inside and out. I'm sorry, Harold. About Grace. About everything. He straightens slowly, his knees protesting the movement. It's been a long time, Katherine. Too long. She hesitates, then reaches into her purse, pulling out a matching train ticket to the one in his pocket. I kept mine too. Harold stares at the yellowed paper, memories flooding back. August 1st, 1973. They were supposed to leave together. Two small-town kids chasing dreams in New York City. He'd waited at the station for hours, watching train after train depart, until finally accepting she wasn't coming. Why? The question that's haunted him for nearly 5 decades finally emerges. Catherine's hands tighten around the ticket. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me. From what? From making a terrible mistake. She looks away, watching the fog dance between the headstones. Your father had just had his heart attack. The family business was struggling. You had responsibilities here. That wasn't your decision to make. No, she admits softly, but I was 18 and thought I knew everything, including what was best for you. Harold closes his eyes, remembering that summer. The weight of his father's illness, the pressure of the family hardware store teetering on bankruptcy, the whispered arguments between his parents late at night, but also the joy, the pure, uncomplicated joy of being in love with Katherine Reynolds. I meant to write, she continues, to explain, but days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And then I met Grace. Harold finishes. Yes. Katherine smiles sadly. I saw the engagement announcement in the paper. You looked happy. We were. He touches the ring hanging from his neck. 50 wonderful years. A gentle breeze stirs the roses on Grace's grave. Katherine takes another step forward, close enough now that Harold can smell her perfume, different from what she wore as a girl, but somehow still essentially her. I never married, she says suddenly. Well, I did once, briefly. It didn't last, couldn't last. She meets his eyes. How do you build a life with someone when your heart is stuck in 1973? The words hang between them, heavy with decades of unspoken feelings. Harold's hand moves from Grace's ring to the train ticket in his pocket. These tangible links to the 2 great loves of his life. Why come back now? He asks finally. Because I'm tired of regrets, tired of wondering what if, and because, she takes a deep breath, because there's something you need to know. Something I should have told you 47 years ago. But before she can continue, a familiar voice calls out across the cemetery. Dad. They turn to see Sarah approaching through the fog, her expression shifting from concern to confusion as she spots Katherine. Harold feels the moment shatter. Like glass, the weight of the present rushing back in. I should go, Katherine says quickly, stepping back. I shouldn't have. Katherine, wait. Harold reaches for her arm, but stops himself. Please, we're not finished. She nods, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I'm staying at the River Inn, room 212. Then she's gone, disappearing into the mist like a memory, leaving Harold to face his daughter's questioning gaze and the gentle presence of his wife's grave. Who was that? Sarah's question hangs in the air as Katherine's figure disappears into the fog. Harold stares after her, his mind still caught between past and present. Someone I used to know, he says finally, a long time ago. Dad, Sarah's tone is gentle but firm. That was Katherine Reynolds, wasn't it? Mom's friend from the letters? Harold turns sharply. What letters? Sarah reaches into her bag, pulling out a bundle tied with faded blue ribbon. I found these when we were cleaning out Mom's study. I've been trying to find the right time to show you. Harold takes the bundle with trembling hands. Each envelope is addressed to Katherine Reynolds, spanning decades, but none bear postmarks. They were never sent. Your mother, his voice catches. Grace wrote to Katherine. For years, it seems. Sarah touches his arm. Maybe we should read them at home. The drive back is silent. the bundle of letters sitting between them like a living thing. Harold's mind races. Grace had known about. Katherine had written to her. The world he thought he knew shifts beneath his feet. At home, Sarah makes tea while Harold settles into his armchair. Grace's letters spread across his lap. The first is dated September 1974, just months after he and Grace started dating. "Dear Katherine," he reads aloud, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't know me, but I know about you. Harold speaks your name in his sleep sometimes, and I see the way he looks at train stations when we pass them." Sarah sits nearby, watching her father carefully as he continues reading. "I should probably hate you, or at least resent you, but I don't. The man I'm falling in love with was shaped by loving you, and by losing you. How can I hate something that helped create such a beautiful soul?" Letter after letter reveals Grace's inner world, her understanding, her compassion, even her gratitude to the woman who had broken Harold's heart. March 1980. Katherine, we're expecting our first child, a girl. Sometimes I wonder if you have children of your own, if they have Harold's gentle eyes like our daughter might. June 1995. The hardware store is finally turning a profit. Harold's so proud. I often think about how close he came to leaving it all behind for New York. Thank you for seeing what I'm not sure he could, that his roots here weren't chains, but wings. April 2010. Is it strange to miss someone I've never met? To feel like I know you through the spaces you left behind? Harold's happy, truly happy. I hope you are too. The final letter is dated just weeks before Grace's death. Harold's hands shake as he unfolds it. "Dear Katherine, I know I'm running out of time. The doctors try to be hopeful, but I can read the truth in their eyes. There's so much I need to say to Harold and to you." He has to pause, emotion overwhelming him. Sarah squeezes his hand. "I've written these letters for 40 years, never sending them, using them as a way to understand my own heart. But now I think perhaps they were meant for something more. If you're reading this, it means someone, probably Sarah, found them after I was gone. And it means it's time." "Time for what?" Harold whispers. "Time to heal old wounds. Time to find out why you really left that day at the train station. Harold deserves to know the truth, and you deserve to tell it. I've had a wonderful life, with a man who loved me completely, even with the piece of his heart that always belonged to you. Now that my chapter is ending, perhaps it's time for the story to come full circle." The letter ends with a postscript that brings fresh tears to Harold's eyes. "P.S. If you do find your way back to him, know that you have my blessing. Love isn't diminished by being shared. Sometimes it's multiplied." Sarah gently takes the letters from her father's trembling hands. "Mom knew," she says softly. "She knew everything." "Not everything," Harold responds, thinking of Katherine's words at the cemetery. "There's still something we don't know." He stands suddenly, decision crystallizing. "I need to go to the River Inn." "Dad, your mother kept these letters for 40 years, Sarah. 40 years of trying to understand why Katherine left. Don't you think it's time we knew the truth?" Sarah looks at the letters scattered across the floor, at the decades of her mother's understanding and grace spread out before them. "I'll drive you," she says finally. The River Inn stands on Main Street, just as it has since 1925, its red brick facade weathered by time, but still proud. As Sarah pulls into the parking lot, Harold spots Katherine through the window of the adjacent coffee shop, Jenny's Place, though it wasn't called that in 1973. Back then, it was the Starlight Diner, where coffee cost 30 cents, and Katherine always ordered a chocolate malt with 2 straws. "You're sure about this?" Sarah asks, putting the car in park. Harold fingers Grace's letters in his pocket. "Your mother wanted us to know the truth, all of us." Katherine looks up as they enter, her face registering surprise at seeing Sarah. Her hands are wrapped around a coffee cup, the same vintage china that Jenny's mother used to serve them in all those years ago. "Harold," she says softly. Then, "You must be Sarah. You look just like your mother." Sarah's prepared response seems to catch in her throat. Instead, She pulls out a chair and sits. Harold follows suit, and suddenly they're all there. 3 people connected by a story half a century in the making. "I found Mum's letters," Sarah says without preamble. Katherine's cup clatters slightly against its saucer. "Grace wrote to me." "For 40 years, Harold confirms. "She never sent them." Katherine's eyes fill with tears. "She knew about me. She knew everything." "Well, almost everything." Harold leans forward. "Except why you really left." The afternoon crowd at Jenny's bustles around them, but their table exists in its own pocket of time. Katherine stares into her coffee cup, as if reading fortunes in its depths. "I was pregnant," she says finally. The words fall like stones into still water. Harold grips the edge of the table, feeling the world tilt beneath him. "What?" The question comes out barely above a whisper. "I found out 2 weeks before we were supposed to leave for New York. I was so scared, so confused. Your father was sick, the store was failing, and she takes a shaky breath. "I couldn't be the reason you gave up everything. But the baby—" Harold can't finish the question. "She's beautiful," Katherine says softly. "She lives in Boston. Her name is Grace." Sarah makes a small sound, somewhere between a gasp and a laugh. "You named her Grace?" It seemed right somehow. "I gave her up for adoption to a wonderful family. They sent me pictures sometimes through the agency. She has your eyes, Harold, and your smile." Harold's mind races through the implications, the years of unknowing, the daughter he never knew he had. Does she know about me?" Katherine nods. "I found her when she turned 18, told her everything. She understood why I'd made the choice I did. But she wasn't ready to meet you then. She had her own life, her own family, and now she's a mother herself. She has 2 children, your grandchildren." Katherine reaches into her purse, pulls out a photograph. "This is Grace with her family. It was taken last Christmas." Harold stares at the photo, at the woman with his eyes and Katherine's smile, at the children who carry his blood. Sarah leans in, her breath catching. "Dad, she looks so much like Michael." The family resemblance is striking. The same Mitchell chin, the same way of tilting their head when they smile. Harold feels tears running down his cheeks, but can't bring himself to wipe them away. "Why now?" he asks again, his voice rough. "After all these years?" "Because Grace, our Grace, found me 6 months ago. She wants to meet you." Katherine's hand trembles as she reaches across the table, stopping just short of touching his. "That's why I came back, not just for us, but for her, for all of us." The afternoon light slants through Jenny's windows, catching the rim of Katherine's coffee cup, the same pattern, the same china that witnessed their young love all those years ago. Harold thinks of his wife's letters, of her endless capacity for understanding, of her final blessing written in those last precious weeks of her life. "Does she know about—" He gestures vaguely, encompassing everything. Grace's death, his life, the tangled web of their shared past. "She knows. She's the one who found Grace's obituary, actually. She said—" Katherine's voice catches. "She said maybe it was time for her other mother's wish to come true." Sarah, who has been unusually quiet, suddenly stands. "I need to make a phone call. Michael should hear about this too." As she walks away, Harold finally allows his hand to meet Katherine's across the table. Their fingers intertwine, familiar despite the years between then and now. "I never stopped loving you," Katherine whispers. "Even when I thought I'd done the right thing. Even when I heard you were happy with Grace. Even when—" "I know," Harold interrupts gently. "I never stopped loving you either. I just learned to love differently. Grace understood that better than I did." Outside, the town of Millbrook goes about its afternoon business, unaware that in a corner of Jenny's place, a story 50 years in the making is finally finding its way home. The family photo album sits open on the dining room table, its pages spanning 50 years of Mitchell family history. Michael stands over it, staring at a photograph of himself at age 10, comparing it to the picture of his newly discovered half-sister. "It's uncanny," he says for the 3rd time. "We could be twins." Sarah sits beside their father, while Katherine remains standing, uncertain of her place in this familiar family space. Harold's house, the home he shared with Grace, feels both welcoming and accusatory, filled with photographs and memories of a life built without her. "So I have another sister," Michael continues, his voice carefully neutral, "and she has kids, which means we have—" "What? Nieces? Nephews?" "A niece and a nephew," Katherine supplies softly. "Emma is 12 and James is 9. "James," Harold repeats, the name of his grandson feeling strange on his tongue. "After my father?" Katherine nods. "Grace, our Grace. She researched the family, wanted her children to have a connection, even if they never met." "Us," Sarah finishes. She turns another page in the album, revealing a photo of their mother, the other Grace, on her wedding day. Katherine takes an instinctive step back. "Maybe I should go," she says. "This is a lot for everyone to process." "No," the word comes from Michael, surprising them all. "We need to understand this, all of it." He looks at his father. "Are you going to meet her?" "Grace." Harold's hand goes to his neck, where his wife's ring hangs on its chain. "I'd like to, if everyone is comfortable with that." "Comfortable?" Michael laughs, but there's no humor in it. "Dad, nothing about this is comfortable. You have another daughter. We have a sister. There are kids out there who share our blood, who've grown up not knowing us because I made a choice," Katherine interrupts. "A choice I thought was right at the time. If you're going to be angry at me, not your father. He didn't know." "But you did," Sarah says quietly. "For 50 years you knew." Katherine moves to the table, pulling out a chair but not sitting. "Yes, and I've lived with that knowledge every day, watching from a distance as my daughter grew up without her father, as the man I loved built a beautiful life with another woman." "Mom," Michael corrects sharply. "Her name was Mom." "Michael," Harold warns, but Katherine holds up a hand. "No, he's right. Grace wasn't just another woman. She was your mother. She was Harold's wife. She was—" Katherine's voice breaks. "She was better than I could have been. Those letters prove that." Sarah reaches for the bundle of Grace's letters, now worn from multiple readings. "She wanted this, you know. Mom, I mean. She wanted you to come back, wanted the truth to come out." "That doesn't make it easier," Michael says, but his tone has softened slightly. Harold stands, moving to the mantel where dozens of family photos stand in neat rows. He picks up one of Grace in her garden, smiling at the camera with dirty gloves and a sun hat. "Your mother," he says slowly, "had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. She understood something that took me 50 years, to learn that love doesn't divide, it multiplies." He turns to his children. "Meeting Grace, your sister, won't diminish what we had with your mother. It won't change our family. It will expand it." "And what about Katherine?" Sarah asks the question they've all been avoiding. "What's her place in all this?" Harold looks at Katherine, still standing uncertainly by the table. He thinks of the train station in 1973, of 50 years of what-ifs, of Grace's final letter giving her blessing. "That's something we'll need to figure out together," he says finally, "as a family." Michael picks up the photo of Grace, his sister, Grace, and her children. After a long moment, he says, "Emma looks like Mom. Something about her smile." "She does." Katherine agrees softly. "I've always thought so." Sarah stands, moving to the kitchen. "I'll make coffee. We're going to be here a while." She pauses in the doorway. "Katherine, would you help me?" Katherine looks startled, then grateful. "Of course." As the women leave the room, Michael turns to his father. "You okay, Dad?" "Really?" Harold touches his wife's ring again, then looks at the photo of his newfound daughter. "I'm feeling everything. At once, joy, grief, regret, hope. Your mother once wrote that life rarely gives us pure emotions. They come all tangled up together, and our job is to find beauty in the mess." Michael smiles slightly. "That sounds like Mom." "Yes," Harold agrees. "Yes, it does. The Millbrook Community Center hasn't changed much since 1973. The same wooden floor, worn smooth by decades of dancing feet. The same stage where the band sets up. even some of the same decorations, pulled from storage year after year. Harold stands in the doorway, watching elderly couples sway to Moon River, and remembers another dance, another time. Sarah's idea, this coming to the senior center's monthly dance. "You need to get out more," she'd said, her mother's determination in her voice. What she hadn't mentioned was that she'd invited Katherine too. An old vinyl record player sits in the corner, the kind they used to dance to at sock hops. The sight of it brings back memories of their song, "Can't Help Falling in Love." They'd played it so many times at parties that summer, Harold holding Katherine close as Elvis's voice filled the room. "Penny, for your thoughts?" He turns to find Katherine beside him, elegant in a simple blue dress. Her silver hair catches the light from the aging disco ball, creating a halo effect that makes his heart skip. "Just remembering," he says, "the summer of '73. Among other things." He gestures to the record player. "They still have our song, you know. I spotted it in the stack earlier." Katherine's eyes follow his gesture. "We were so young then. Young. Enough to think we could dance all night without our knees complaining." She laughs, and the sound is both familiar and new. "Speak for yourself. I still have some dance left in me." As if on cue, the opening notes of their song start playing. Harold turns to see Sarah at the record player, giving him a small nod. He looks at Katherine, who's watching him with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Well?" he asks, holding out his hand. "Shall we test those knees?" She takes his hand and suddenly they're in the center of the floor. Other couples move around. Them, but Harold barely notices. Katherine's hand feels right in his, her other hand resting lightly on his shoulder. They move together, as if the decades between their last dance and this one have melted away. "Your daughter's quite the matchmaker," Katherine murmurs. "She gets it from her mother." The words come easily now, without the sharp pain they once carried. "Grace was always arranging things, bringing people together." The letters showed that. Katherine's eyes grow distant. "I've been thinking about what she wrote, about love, multiplying rather than dividing." "So have I." They dance in silence. For a moment, letting Elvis's voice fill the space between them. Around them other couples smile, whisper, some pointing discreetly at the reunited sweethearts. "Our Grace called this morning," Katherine says suddenly. "She wants to come next." "Week with the children." Harold's step falters slightly. "Here, to Millbrook? Only if you're ready. She understands if it's too soon." He thinks of the photograph, of the granddaughter with Grace's smile, of the grandson named James. "I'm ready," he says. More than ready. The song begins to fade, but neither of them moves to separate. Instead, Katherine rests her head on Harold's shoulder, just as she used to do all those years ago. "I was so afraid," she whispers. "Afraid of how much I still love you. Afraid of dishonoring Grace's memory. Afraid of hurting more people." "Grace knew," Harold says softly. "She knew everything, including what I'm just starting to understand. That the heart can hold more than one love. That the old love doesn't have to die for a new one to live." As the last notes fade, they finally step apart. Harold becomes aware of the other dancers, of the smiling faces, of Sarah watching from beside the record player with tears in her eyes. "Would you like to get some air?" he asks Katherine. "The garden out back is lovely this time of year." She nods, and he leads her through the French doors to the community center's small garden. The evening air is cool, carrying the scent of late summer roses. They sit on a bench, not unlike the one where they shared their first kiss half a century ago. "Do you remember," Katherine begins, "what you said to me that night at Miller's Pond, right before I cut my hand?" "I said I'd love you forever," Harold answers. "And I meant it. I just didn't understand then that forever could hold more than one story." Katherine reaches for his hand, and their fingers intertwine naturally. Above them, the stars are coming out, the same stars that watched over two teenagers in love, that witnessed their parting, that shone down on Harold and Grace's life together, and that now light this new chapter. "Life's funny, isn't it?" Katherine says, "how it brings things full circle." Grace would say it's not a circle at all. It's more like a garden, always room for new growth, for different kinds of flowers to bloom together. From inside, new music begins to play. But they stay, on their bench, holding hands, letting the evening wrap around them like a familiar melody. Harold finds it on the nightstand that morning, Grace's last birthday card to him, placed there by someone, though he can't remember who. The message inside still brings tears to his eyes. To my beloved Harold, who taught me that love is the greatest adventure of all, may you always keep your heart open to life's possibilities. He's reading it again when the pain hits, sharp and insistent, radiating down his left arm. The card falls from his fingers as he clutches his chest, struggling to breathe. Through the haze of pain, he manages to reach for his phone, but it slips from his trembling hands. "Dad?" Sarah's voice calls from downstairs. She's early for their usual morning check-in, a guardian angel's perfect timing. "Dad, I brought bagels." He tries to call out, but can only manage a weak gasp. The pain intensifies, and he slides to the floor beside Grace's side of the bed. Sarah's footsteps on the stairs. "Dad, why aren't you—" Her voice cuts off as she reaches the doorway. Then, "Dad!" The next few hours blur together. Ambulance sirens, emergency room lights, doctors speaking in urgent tones about blocked arteries and immediate intervention. Sarah's tears, Michael's worried face appearing above him, and surprisingly, Katherine's hand holding his as they wheeled him toward the operating room. "You can't leave yet," she whispers. "We have too many chapters left to write." He wants to respond, to squeeze her hand, but the anesthesia is already pulling him under. As consciousness fades, he sees Grace standing at the foot of his bed, smiling that knowing smile of hers. When he wakes, the hospital room is filled with soft morning light. Sarah is asleep in a chair, Michael paces by the window, and Katherine sits beside the bed, her fingers still intertwined with his. "Welcome back," she says softly. Michael turns at her voice, relief washing over his face. "Dad! Thank God!" He moves to the bed, touching his father's shoulder. "You scared us?" Sarah stirs, then jumps up. "Dad, how are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck," Harold manages, his voice rough. "But I'm here." "The doctor says you were lucky," Michael says. "If Sarah hadn't come early." "Your guardian angel," Katherine says, echoing Harold's earlier thought. Just like her mother. There's no tension in the room when she says this. No awkward shuffle of loyalties. Something has shifted during his unconscious hours, a realignment of hearts. "Grace, our Grace, is on her way," Katherine tells him. "She insisted on coming as soon as she heard. She and the children should be here by evening." Harold's heart. Monitor picks up slightly. "Today, but I'm not ready," Sarah finishes. "Dad, you almost died. I think we're done waiting for perfect moments." "She's right," Michael adds. "Life's too short for hesitation. Mom taught us that." Harold looks at his children. These wonderful, understanding people that he and Grace raised together. Then, at Katherine, who's watched her own daughter grow up from afar, making choices that broke her heart to protect others. "Speaking of Mom," Sarah says, reaching into her bag, "look what I found when I went home to get your things." She hands him Grace's birthday card, slightly crumpled from its fall. It was on the floor beside the bed. Harold takes the card with his free hand, the one not still holding Katherine's. The message seems even more poignant now. "Keep your heart open to life's possibilities." "She knew," he says softly. "She always knew." "Knew what?" Michael asks. "That love isn't finished with me yet." He looks at Katherine, sees the tears in her eyes matching his own. That there's still time for new chapters. A nurse appears in the doorway. "Mr. Mitchell, there's a Grace Morrison here to see you. She says she's your daughter." Harold's heart monitor spikes again, but this time with anticipation rather than pain. He feels Katherine's hand tighten in his, sees Sarah, and Michael straighten with curiosity. "Send her in," he says. "It's time for our family to be whole." As footsteps approach the room, Harold thinks of Grace's card, of her endless capacity for love, of the way she prepared them all for this moment without them even knowing it. Sometimes, he realizes, a crisis is just life's way of bringing people together when they're too stubborn or scared to do it themselves. A yellowed letter lies on Harold's hospital bedside table, delivered by Katherine just moments ago. "I wrote this the day Grace was born," she'd said, placing it beside him. "I never mailed it, but I've carried it with me every day since." Before he can open it, a woman appears in the doorway. Harold's heart catches, not from pain this time, but from recognition. She has his eyes, Katherine's smile, and something entirely her own in the way she carries herself. Behind her, 2 children peek around her legs, curious and slightly shy. "Hello, Dad," Grace Morrison says softly. The word hangs in the air like a prayer. Sarah and Michael stand on either side of their father's bed, while Katherine remains seated, her hand still in Harold's. "Grace?" Harold whispers, tasting the name of his unknown daughter for the first time. She steps forward, her children following. "This is Emma," she says, touching her daughter's shoulder, "and this is James, named after your grandfather," Harold says, remembering what Katherine had told him. Grace nods, tears brimming. "I researched everything I could about you, about our family. I wanted my children to know where they came from, even if we never met," Harold finishes. "I found this in Mom's things," Grace continues, pulling out a photograph from her purse. It shows a young Harold at the hardware store, taken without his knowledge. "She used to show it to me when I asked about you, said you were the kindest man she'd ever known." Katherine makes a small sound, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "I took that picture the week before I left. You were helping old Mrs. Henderson pick out just the right shade of paint for her kitchen. Seafoam green," Harold remembers suddenly. "She repainted that kitchen every spring." The simple memory breaks something open in the room. Emma, emboldened, moves closer to the bed. "Are you really my grandfather?" Harold looks at this child, his granddaughter, with her curious eyes and Grace's smile. "Yes," he says, "I am." "But we already have a grandfather," James pipes up from behind his sister. "James," Grace admonishes, but Harold laughs. "You're right," he says to the boy, "and you still do. I'm just extra." Sarah steps forward then, kneeling to the children's level. "Which means you have extra cousins too. My kids would love to meet you." As Sarah engages the children, Grace moves closer to the bed. Her eyes fall on the unopened letter. "Is that?" Katherine nods. "The letter I wrote the day you were born." "May I?" Harold asks, reaching for it. Grace and Katherine both nod. With trembling fingers, he unfolds the fragile paper. "Dearest Harold," he reads aloud, "today I held our daughter for the first time. She has your eyes and my mother's chin. And when she wrapped her tiny hand around my finger, I almost broke. Almost got in a taxi and came straight back to Millbrook. To show you this miracle we created," he has to pause, emotion overwhelming him. Michael places a steadying hand on his shoulder. "But I know I can't. Your father's health is worse, the store is struggling, and you have responsibilities that I refuse to take you away from. One day, maybe, she'll understand why I did what I did, why I gave her to Tom and Martha Morrison, who've been praying for a child for so long. They'll give her everything we can't right now, stability, security, 2 parents who are ready for her. I just hope that someday, when she learns the truth, she'll know that this choice was made with more love than I knew I was capable of feeling." The letter continues, but Harold can't read any more through his tears. Grace takes it gently from his hands. "I did understand," she says softly. "When Mom told me on my 18th birthday, I understood. I had wonderful parents who gave me everything, just like she wanted, but I still felt this space inside me, this question mark, where you should have been. And now?" Harold asks. "Now I'm here, because Mom found your wife's obituary, and something about her words, about her understanding. It felt like permission, like maybe it was finally time for all the pieces to fit together." Emma tugs at her mother's sleeve. "Can we show him the pictures from my dance recital?" Grace laughs, wiping her eyes. "Of course, honey." As his newfound family crowds around him, sharing photographs and stories, Harold glances at Katherine. She's watching them all with a look of wonder, as if she can't quite believe this moment is real. "Thank you," he mouths to her. She shakes her head. "Thank Grace," she whispers back. "Both of them." The garden bench where Grace used to write her letters sits under the old maple tree. Its wood weathered, but still sturdy. A week after Harold's release from the hospital, both families gather in this backyard that holds so many memories. Emma and James play with their newfound cousins, while the adults watch from the patio, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the lawn. "Mum loved this spot," Sarah says, running her hand along the bench's worn arm. "She said she did her best." Thinking here, Grace Morrison sits beside her half-sister, taking in the garden their mother had tended so carefully. "It's beautiful, the roses especially." "Those were her pride and joy," Michael adds, adjusting the grill temperature. "She used to say every flower had its own personality." Katherine stands slightly apart, watching her daughter bond with her siblings, until Harold gently takes her hand and leads her to join the others. The gesture doesn't go unnoticed by their children. "You know what's strange?" Grace says, looking at Sarah. "Growing up, I always wanted a sister, and now I have one." Sarah smiles, touching Grace's arm. "Better late than never." From the lawn comes a burst of children's laughter. Emma has discovered the tire swing that Harold hung decades ago for Sarah and Michael. James is showing his cousins a magic trick he learned, his small hands moving with careful precision. "Dad," Michael calls from the grill, "remember how you taught us to tell when the burgers were done?" "Press gently with your thumb," Harold and Grace say simultaneously, then look at each other in surprise. "Tom, my dad, he taught me the same thing," Grace explains. "I wonder if he learned it from Harold." Katherine finishes. "He did. I remember telling him about it during one of our early meetings. I wanted him to have pieces of you to pass on." The revelation settles over the group. Harold sits on Grace's bench, feeling the warmth of the wood that absorbed so many of his wife's thoughts. "Your mother," he says to Grace, "she was a remarkable woman. Both of your mothers were." "Ah," he corrects, smiling at Katherine. "I wish I could have met her," Grace says softly. "From her letters, I feel like I almost knew her." Sarah disappears into the house, returning with a leather-bound photo album. "Maybe you can know her now," she says, sitting between Grace and Katherine. They spend the next hour turning pages, sharing stories. Harold watches as his past and present weave together through photographs and memories. Katherine points out places she remembers from their youth, while Sarah and Michael fill in the decades that followed. "Look at this one," Sarah says, pointing to a photo of their mother in her garden. "This was right after she finished her last round of chemo. The doctors had told her to rest, but she insisted on planting new roses. She said," Michael remembers, "just because something's ending doesn't mean you stop planting for spring." Grace touches the photograph gently. She was thinking ahead. To this, maybe, to all of us. The afternoon light begins to fade, but no one moves to go inside. James falls asleep in Katherine's lap, while Emma continues to swing, her long hair catching the last rays of sun. Harold looks at this tableau, his children, all of them together. Katherine, finally where she belongs, his grandchildren playing. In the yard where he once pushed their parents on that same tire swing. "Mum would have loved this," Sarah says, voicing what they're all thinking. "She did love it," Harold responds. "She saw it long before any of us did. Every letter she wrote, every rose she planted. She was building bridges we didn't even know we'd need." Katherine wipes a tear from her cheek. "I was so afraid of disrupting your lives, of dishonoring her memory." "Oh, Mom," Grace says, taking her hand, "can't you see? This is exactly what she wanted. All of us, together, finding our way back to each other." As if in response, a warm breeze stirs the roses, carrying their fragrance across the garden. Harold closes his eyes, remembering Grace's words from her final letter. "Love isn't diminished by being shared. Sometimes it's multiplied." "She was right," he says softly. "She was right about everything." They stay in the garden until the stars come out, this newly expanded family, sharing stories and building bridges of their own. And somewhere, Harold thinks, Grace is watching from her garden bench, smiling that knowing smile of hers, pleased to see her final gift to them all, finally unwrapped and understood. 2 wedding rings rest in Harold's palm. One is Katherine's, never worn, kept in a small velvet box for 47 years. The other is Grace's, warm from hanging near his heart. In the quiet of his bedroom, he studies them both, these circles of gold that represent such different kinds of love. "I thought I might find you up here," Sarah says from the doorway. She joins him on the edge of the bed, looking at the rings in his hand. "Katherine showed you hers?" "Found it in her hotel room drawer." Harold nods. "She kept it all these years, just like I kept the train ticket. And now?" Harold closes his fingers around both rings. "I've been thinking about what your mother wrote, about love multiplying rather than dividing, but this still feels complicated, sacred," he corrects. "These aren't just rings. They're promises, stories, lives." Sarah takes Grace's ring from his palm, holding it up to the light. "Mom's last letter wasn't just giving you permission, Dad. It was giving you a blessing. There's a difference." "I know." He looks at Katherine's unworn ring. "But it's not just about Grace's blessing. It's about honoring both loves, both stories, finding a way to hold them both without diminishing either. Maybe that's what the rings are trying to tell you," Sarah suggests. "One represents a love that was lived fully, beautifully, to its natural end. The other represents a love interrupted, unfinished, waiting." Harold finishes softly. From downstairs comes the sound of laughter. Katherine is teaching Emma to bake Grace's chocolate chip cookie recipe, with James as their eager taste tester. The familiar scents waft up, mingling with memories of other baking days, other laughter in this house. "Did I ever tell you about the day I proposed to your mother?" Harold asks suddenly. Sarah shakes her head. "I was so nervous. I dropped the ring. It rolled under the porch of the old gazebo in Town Square. We spent an hour looking for it, both of us on our hands and knees, laughing like teenagers. When we finally found it covered in dirt and cobwebs, your mother said it was perfect. That, love should start with laughter and teamwork." "That sounds like Mom." "The thing is," Harold continues, "she was right. Our whole marriage was built on that foundation, laughter, teamwork, facing whatever came our way together." He looks at Katherine's ring. "And now you have a chance to build something new," Sarah says. "Different but no less real." Harold stands, moving to his dresser where a small wooden box sits. Inside is a simple silver chain, the one that had held Grace's ring since her passing. With careful movements, he threads both rings onto it, together. He says softly, "Where they both belong." Sarah watches as he fastens the chain around his neck. "You've made your decision, haven't you? I think I made it the moment I saw her standing at your mother's grave. I just needed time to understand what it meant." He touches the rings, resting against his chest. "One, to honor the love that built this family, that made me the man I am. One, to embrace the love that's been given a second chance." "Katherine's still at the hotel?" Harold nods. "Room 212, where she's been since she came back to Millbrook." "Well then." Sarah stands, smiling her mother's smile. "Maybe it's time she came home." The word hangs in the air between them. Home, not just a house with memories, but a living, breathing space where new memories can grow alongside the old ones. "Your mother once told me," Harold says, "that a home is like her garden, always. Room for new blooms, as long as you tend the perennials with care." "She'd be happy, Dad, really." "I know." He touches the rings again. "Because she understood something I'm just learning. That the heart is big enough for all of it. The memories and the moments yet to come. The grief and the joy. The endings and the new beginnings." From downstairs, Katherine calls up, "Harold, the cookies are ready." He smiles at his daughter. "Shall we?" Sarah links her arm through his. "Lead the way, Dad. Lead the way." A new leather-bound journal sits on Harold's desk, its pages crisp and empty. Katherine had given it to him that morning, a simple note tucked inside. Time to write our next chapter. Now, as he adjusts his tie in the mirror, he thinks about all the stories waiting to fill those blank pages. "You look handsome," Sarah says, appearing in his doorway. "Need help with that tie?" "Your mother always said I could never quite get it straight." Sarah steps forward, adjusting the knot with practiced hands. "Mom taught me how. Said it was an essential skill for Mitchell women." The mention of Grace brings a smile rather than sadness now. 3 months have passed since Harold's heart attack, since Grace Morrison and her children entered their lives, since Katherine came back to stay. Each day, the threads of their old and new lives weave more tightly together. "Nervous?" Sarah asks, stepping back to admire her handiwork. "About dinner with Katherine? We've had dinner together plenty of times." "Yes, but this is different. This is your first real date." She's right. Until now, their meals have been family affairs, crowded, joyful gatherings with children and grandchildren, or quiet suppers with Sarah and Michael. Tonight is just for them, a proper dinner at Giovanni's, where they once shared milkshakes as teenagers. "What if—" Harold begins, then stops. "What if what? What if we've changed too much? What if we can't find our way back to who we were?" Sarah picks up the new journal from his desk. "Maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe it's about finding out who you are now, together." A car horn sounds outside. Michael offering to drive his father to the restaurant. Harold takes one last look. In the mirror, at the silver chain visible above his collar, 2 rings resting against his heart. "Dad," Sarah hands him the journal. "Take this with you, just in case." At Giovanni's, Katherine waits outside, elegant in a deep blue dress. Her silver hair catches the early evening light, and Harold's heart does that familiar skip, the same one he felt at 18, the same one he felt at Grace's grave months ago. "You look beautiful," he says, and means it with all the wisdom of his years. "You look pretty good yourself." She touches his collar lightly. "Sarah did your tie?" "Didn't." "Gee." They laugh, and just like that, the nervousness melts away. Inside, the restaurant has changed, modernized here and there, but the red checkered tablecloths remain the same, and the old jukebox still stands in the corner. "Table for 2? The hostess asks. "Actually," Harold says, "could we sit at the counter by the milkshake machine?" Katherine's eyes light up. "Just like old times?" They settle onto the familiar stools, ordering chocolate malts, Katherine's with extra whipped cream, just as she always had it. Harold places the journal on the counter between them. "Sarah suggested I bring it," he explains, "for new memories." Katherine opens it to the first page, running her fingers over the blank paper. "What should we write first? How about, once upon a time, there was a love story that took 50 years to find its ending, or its beginning," Katherine adds, softly. Their malts arrive, 2 straws in each, despite neither of them ordering it that way. Some things, it seems, the old staff at Giovanni's remembers. "I've been thinking," Harold says, taking a sip of his malt, "about time, about second chances. And I think maybe we needed all these years. Needed to become who we are now. Needed Grace's wisdom and love to teach us both what really matters." Katherine reaches for his hand, her fingers finding his with the ease of both memory and discovery. "I used to regret every day we lost. Now I'm starting to see them as days that brought us here." Harold opens the journal, pulling a pen from his pocket. At the top of the first page, he writes, "The new chapter." Below it, he adds today's date, then first date, second time around at Giovanni's. She still takes extra whipped cream on her malt. Katherine laughs, taking the pen. She adds, he still gets chocolate on his tie, even when Sarah ties it perfectly. They spend the evening like that, trading the pen back and forth, recording moments both profound and ordinary. When the journal entry fills a page, Harold writes at the bottom, "Some love stories take a lifetime to tell. We're lucky we get to tell ours twice." Outside, the sun sets on Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of promise. Tomorrow they'll share these pages with their children, add more memories, blend more lives together. But tonight is just for them. two people finding their way back to each other, one word, one laugh, one shared memory at a time. Grace's favorite silk scarf, a delicate thing in shades of blue and purple, rests in Katherine's hands. Sarah had brought it to her that morning, along with a note that had made them both cry. "Mom would want you to wear this today. She always said it brought out the color in her eyes. I think it'll do the same for yours." Today marks what would have been Grace and Harold's 53rd wedding anniversary. Instead of their usual family dinner, Harold had surprised everyone by suggesting they gather at the cemetery to honor Grace's memory, then share a celebration of both loves, past and present. Katherine stands before the mirror, carefully arranging the scarf. Behind her, Emma watches with curious eyes. "Did you know her?" the girl asks. "Your Grace." Katherine smiles at the phrase, "Your Grace." The children have taken to distinguishing between Grandma Grace and Your Grace when speaking to their elders. "No, sweetheart, but sometimes I feel like I did, through her letters and through the way everyone speaks about her. Daddy says she was the kindest person he ever knew." "Your father's right." Katherine turns from the mirror. She had enough love in her heart to share with everyone, even people she'd never met. The drive to Oakwood Cemetery feels different today. Katherine has visited many times since her return to Millbrook, but this visit carries special weight. Harold waits at the entrance, looking distinguished in his Sunday suit, both rings still hanging from the chain around his neck. "The scarf," he says softly when he sees her. "Grace wore that the day Sarah graduated college. Is this okay?" Katherine touches the silk uncertainly. "Sarah brought it. But if it's too much," Harold takes her hand. "It's perfect. Grace would be pleased." They walk together to the gravesite where the rest of the family waits. Sarah and Michael stand with their spouses and children. Grace Morrison and her family have driven up from Boston. Even Tom and Martha Morrison, Grace's adoptive parents, have come, a gesture that brings tears to Katherine's eyes. Harold steps forward, placing a bouquet of Grace's favorite roses on the headstone. "My dearest Grace," he begins, his voice strong and clear, 53 years ago today, you made me the happiest man in the world. You also made me a better man, one who learned that love doesn't follow rules or fit in boxes, one who learned that the heart's capacity for love is limitless." Sarah steps up beside her father. "Mom, you taught us that family isn't just about blood or names. It's about the choices we make every day to love and support each other. You gave us roots," Michael adds, "but also wings." Grace Morrison moves, so forward, placing her own flowers beside Harold's. "I never met you," she says softly, "but you helped raise the siblings I didn't know I had. You loved the father I didn't know I had. And somehow you found a way to reach across time and bring us all together." Katherine feels tears rolling down her cheeks as Tom and Martha Morrison join the circle. Martha takes her hand, squeezing it gently. After all these years, these two women who loved the same child in different ways can finally share that love openly. "I have something to share," Harold says, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "I found this in Grace's desk last week. It's dated for today." Everyone grows still as he opens the letter. "My dearest family," he reads, "if you're reading this, you're all together at last. Harold, my love, I hope you're wearing both rings, symbols of how love grows and changes but never dies. Katherine, I hope you're wearing my blue scarf. I chose it specially, knowing someday it would look beautiful on you." Katherine's hand flies to the silk at her throat. Somehow, impossibly, Grace had known. "To my children, Sarah, Michael, and yes, Grace too, love each other. Learn from each other. Share your stories and your laughter. To my grandchildren, all of you, remember that love is the greatest inheritance we can leave behind. And to everyone gathered here today, know that I am with you, celebrating this beautiful, complicated, wonderful family we've become." The letter ends with a postscript that makes Harold laugh through his tears. "P.S. Katherine, don't let Harold cook the anniversary dinner. He still can't make my lasagna properly." As if on cue, Sarah pulls out a dish from her bag. "Mum's recipe," she says. "She taught me last summer, made me promise to keep the tradition." They spread a blanket on the grass, sharing Grace's lasagna and stories of both past and present. The children play between the headstones, their laughter a reminder that life goes on, that love grows, that family expands in beautiful and unexpected ways. Katherine feels Harold's hand find hers as they watch their blended family together. Grace's scarf catches the breeze, wrapping around them both like a blessing. A simple silver band lies in Harold's palm, different from both previous rings that rest against his chest. He had chosen it carefully, not trying to replicate either past ring, but creating something new, something that spoke of fresh beginnings while honoring all that came before. "It's perfect," Sarah says, examining the ring's delicate pattern. "Simple but meaningful. Look inside," Harold tells her. Sarah tilts the ring to catch the light, reading the inscription, "Love multiplies, G." Her eyes fill with tears. Mom's words. I hoped she wouldn't mind." "Mind?" Sarah laughs softly. "Dad, she practically orchestrated this from beyond. Those letters, the scarf, the anniversary note. She was laying the groundwork all along." Harold sits in his favorite chair, the one that still holds the indent of countless evenings spent with Grace. "I've been thinking about timing, whether it's too soon or—" "Dad," Sarah interrupts gently, "you and Katherine have been waiting 50 years. If anything, it's long overdue." From the garden comes the sound of laughter. Katherine is teaching Emma and James how to prune roses, using the techniques she learned from Grace's letters. Harold watches through the window as she guides Emma's small hands, showing her exactly where to make the cut. "She belongs here," he says softly. "She already feels like home." "Then what are you waiting for?" Harold touches the rings on his chain. "I need to do something first." Later that afternoon, he stands at Grace's grave, the silver band in his hand. The October sun casts long shadows across the headstone, and the roses they planted last spring are in full bloom. "I think you knew this day would come," he says to the quiet air. "You were always better at seeing the future than I was." He holds up the new ring. "I had them engrave your words inside. I hope that's okay. I needed you to be part of this too." A warm breeze stirs the roses, carrying their fragrance, Grace's favorite scent. Harold smiles, taking it as the blessing it feels like. "I'll never stop loving you," he continues. "These past 50 years, the family we built, the life we shared, it's all still here, still precious. But you were right. Love multiplies. And Katherine, she's been waiting so long, loving so faithfully." He touches the headstone gently. "Thank you for understanding before any of us did, for preparing us all for this moment." When he returns home, Katherine is still in the garden, now alone as the sun sets. She's wearing Grace's scarf again. It's become a comfort piece for her, a connection to the woman whose understanding made all this possible. "The roses look beautiful," Harold says, joining her on the bench. "They practically grow themselves." Grace left such detailed instructions in her garden journal. Harold takes her hand, weathered and familiar and precious. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day at the cemetery? About how you never stopped loving me?" Katherine nods, her eyes meeting his. "I never stopped loving you either, even when I thought I should, even when I thought it was wrong to hold both loves in my heart." He shifts on the bench, turning to face her fully. "Grace taught me that love doesn't work that way. It's not a finite resource. It grows, changes, multiplies." Katherine's breath catches as Harold slides from the bench to one knee, his movement careful but determined. 50 years ago, we were going to start our life together. We were young, full of dreams, and thought we knew everything. Now we're older, hopefully wiser, and I find myself dreaming again." He pulls out the silver band. "Katherine Reynolds, will you help me write our next chapter?" Tears spill down Katherine's cheeks as she reads the inscription inside the ring. "Grace," she whispers, touching the engraved words. "She's part of our story too," Harold says softly. "Always will be." Katherine touches the scarf at her throat, then the rings hanging from Harold's chain. "Yes," she says simply, "yes to all. Of it, the past, the present, the future we'll write together." Daesh, as Harold slips the ring onto her finger, the garden fills with cheers. Their families emerge from their hiding spots behind trees and bushes. Sarah, Michael, Grace and her children, all of them sharing in this moment of joy and completion. "Mum would love this," Sarah says, hugging them both. "She does," Harold replies, looking at the roses Grace planted, blooming out of season as if in celebration. "She absolutely does." A locket hangs from Katherine's bouquet, swaying gently as she prepares for the ceremony. Inside, two photographs face each other. A young Grace on her wedding day, radiant in white, and Katherine herself from 1973, forever 18 in faded color. Sarah had given it to her that morning, saying, "Now you'll both be walking down the aisle with her." The wedding is small, held in Grace's garden, where the roses are still blooming impossibly late into autumn. Chairs form a small semicircle, around the old bench where Grace used to write, now serving as an altar of sorts. Emma and James scatter rose petals along the path, while their cousins hold ribbons that create an aisle through the garden. "Ready?" Grace Morrison asks, adjusting her mother's dress, an elegant pale blue that catches the November light. "I've been ready for 50 years, Katherine replies, touching the locket again. In their bedroom, Harold stands before the mirror, Sarah helping with his tie, just as her mother always did. The two rings still hang from his neck, soon to be joined by a third. "You're sure about this, Dad?" Sarah asks, though they both know it's just tradition speaking. "More sure than I've been about anything in a long time." He touches the rings at his chest. "Your mother helped me understand. Love isn't a finite resource. It's more like her garden. There's always room for new growth." Michael appears in the doorway. They're ready. The garden has never looked more beautiful. Fairy lights twine through the trees, ready for when dusk falls. The old bench, polished and draped with Grace's favorite quilts, holds a small wooden box containing the new rings. Tom and Martha Morrison sit in the front row beside Sarah and Michael's families. This beautiful blending of chosen and biological. Bonds. Harold takes his place by the bench, touching the rings at his neck one last time. Then the small gathering grows quiet as Katherine appears at the garden gate. She's a vision in pale blue, Grace's scarf draped elegantly around her shoulders. But it's the locket that catches Harold's eye, the way it catches the light as she walks toward him. Their daughter Grace walks beside her, while Emma leads the way with her basket of rose petals. When Katherine reaches him, Harold gently touches the locket. "Both of them," he whispers. "All of us," she corrects softly. The justice of the peace, granddaughter of the man who married Harold and Grace, begins the ceremony. We're gathered here today in this beautiful garden, a place that represents growth, renewal, and the endless capacity of love to bloom again and again. Sarah steps forward to read from Grace's letters. "Love isn't diminished by being shared. Sometimes it's multiplied. Like flowers in a garden, each bloom unique, but part of the same beautiful whole." Michael follows with his own reading. This one from the journal Harold and Katherine have been keeping since their first date at Giovanni's. Some love stories take a lifetime to tell. We're lucky we get to tell ours twice, when it's time. For the rings, Grace Morrison opens the wooden box. The new bands gleam against the quilted backdrop, simple silver circles that echo the pattern of Katherine's engagement ring, each inscribed with Grace's words about love multiplying. These rings, the justice says, represent not just the love between Harold and Katherine, but the love that has brought all of us here. The love of parents for children, of siblings found late but cherished deeply, of families blended and bonds strengthened by time and understanding. Harold's hands tremble slightly as he places the ring on Katherine's finger. "With this ring, I promise to love you the way I always have, but with the wisdom of years lived and lessons learned. I promise to honor our past, celebrate our present, and welcome whatever future blooms before us." Katherine's voice is steady as she slides his ring home, With this ring I promise to love you with the passion of our youth and the understanding of our age. I promise to help tend this garden of family we've grown, nurturing all the love that flourishes here. As they're pronounced husband and wife, the setting sun breaks through the clouds, illuminating the garden in a golden glow. The roses seem to shine, and for a moment Harold swears he can smell Grace's perfume on the breeze. "She's here," Sarah whispers, and everyone knows who she means. The small gathering moves to tables set up on the lawn, where Sarah has recreated Grace's lasagna recipe and Katherine has baked her famous chocolate chip cookies. Wine is poured, toasts are made, and stories flow as freely as the laughter. As dusk falls and the fairy lights twinkle to life, Harold leads Katherine to the old bench for their first dance. The locket catches the light as they sway together, two photographs witnessing this moment of completion, of circles closing and new ones beginning. "Look," Katherine whispers, nodding toward their gathered family. Sarah and Michael sit with Grace between them, their children playing together on the lawn. Tom and Martha Morrison share stories with the grandchildren, love multiplied beyond measure. "Grace would love this," Harold says, holding Katherine close. "She does," Katherine replies, touching the locket. "She absolutely does." A newly updated family tree hangs in Harold and Katherine's living room, its branches spreading wide across the carefully crafted paper. What makes this genealogical record unique is its structure. There are no straight lines here, no simple top-to-bottom progression. Instead, the tree grows in circles and curves, showing how love and fate have woven their family together in unexpected ways. Grace's name appears twice on the tree, once as Harold's first wife and mother to Sarah and Michael, and again as Katherine and Harold's daughter. Emma and James's names connect to both Grace Morrison and their Mitchell cousins, while Tom and Martha Morrison's branch intertwines with Katherine's, showing how chosen family can be as strong as blood. "It's like one of Mom's rose gardens," Sarah observes, touching the frame. "Everything growing together, supporting each other." It's been a year since the wedding in Grace's garden. The roses still bloom there, tended now by both Katherine and Sarah, who spent the summer learning from each other. The bench where Grace used to write has become a favorite spot for family storytelling, where grandchildren gather to hear tales of both past and present. Today, they're all together for Sunday dinner, a tradition that now includes Grace and her family driving up from Boston one weekend a month. The house fills with the scent of Katherine's cooking mingled with Grace's recipes, a fusion that symbolizes their blended lives. Emma runs through the living room, clutching a photograph she's found in one of the old albums. "Grandpa, is this you?" Harold takes the photo, smiling at the image of himself and Katherine at the county fair. "That's from 1973, he says, just a few weeks before everything changed," Katherine finishes, joining them. She wears Grace's scarf as she often does now, the blue silk a complement to her silver hair. "But it changed back," Emma says with a child's simple wisdom. "You found each other again. With a little help," Harold adds, touching the 3 rings that still hang from his chain. In the kitchen, Sarah and Grace work side by side, their movements in sync despite their late-in-life introduction as sisters. They're preparing Grace's lasagna using their mother's recipe, but with a few additions, Katherine suggested, a perfect metaphor for their combined family. Michael's son is teaching James to play chess on the old set that belonged to Harold's father, while Martha Morrison shares stories of Grace's childhood with her young cousins. The barriers between biological and chosen family have dissolved, leaving only love and connection. "I've been thinking," Katherine says, settling onto the couch beside Harold, "about what Grace wrote in her last letter, about love multiplying." "Oh, look at this." She gestures to their full house, to the sound of children laughing and adults talking, to the smell of shared recipes and the sight of their expanded family tree. She knew, didn't she, that love wouldn't just multiply between you and me, but between all of us. Harold watches as Sarah helps Emma set the table using Grace's china that Katherine now keeps polished and ready for family gatherings. He sees how Michael and Grace have developed their own sibling shorthand, teasing each other as if they'd grown up together. He notices how the grandchildren move between all their various grandparents with equal ease and affection. The tree keeps growing, he says softly, and blooming, Katherine adds, touching Grace's scarf. Like the roses. Tom Morrison approaches, carrying a bottle of wine. Found this in the cellar, he says. Grace, our Grace, said it was from your wedding. The first one? Harold examines the label. Grace and I were saving it for our 50th anniversary. Well, Tom says, seems to me this family's got plenty to celebrate. Maybe she'd like us to open it now. As if in answer, a warm breeze stirs the curtains, carrying the scent of roses from the garden. Katherine squeezes Harold's hand, both of them thinking the same thing. Grace would definitely approve. The family gathers around the dinner table, this beautiful tapestry of lives woven together by choice and chance and love. Harold raises his glass, looking at the faces around him. Sarah and Michael, his firstborn children. Grace, the daughter he found again. Katherine, his love lost and regained. And all the grandchildren, spouses and chosen family who make their circle complete. To family, he says simply. To love that multiplies, Katherine adds. To all of us, Grace finishes, touching her mother's hand. And somewhere, in the garden where roses bloom forever, another Grace smiles. A new gravestone stands next to Grace's in Oakwood Cemetery, recently installed but not yet needed. Harold had chosen it carefully, a double stone with space for 3 names. Grace's inscription fills the left side, while the right awaits Harold and Katherine. The center bears a simple engraving of a rose, and the words that brought them all together. Love multiplies. Are you sure about this? Katherine had asked when he first suggested it. Having all 3 of us together, Grace brought us back. Now to each other, Harold had replied. It seems right that we should all stay together. Now, on a crisp spring morning, 2 years after their wedding, Harold and Katherine stand before both stones. They come here often, not out of grief anymore, but out of gratitude. Grace's grave has become a place of peace, of connection, of family history. Emma runs ahead of them through the cemetery gates, carrying fresh roses from the garden. At 13, now she's taken a special interest in tending her grandmother's roses, learning the secrets of pruning and care that have been passed down through letters and love. Look, Grandpa, she calls. The first yellow rose bloomed today, just like in Grandma Grace's garden journal, 3rd week of April every year. Harold smiles, watching his granddaughter arrange the flowers with careful attention. She's wearing Grace's scarf. Katherine had given it to her on her last birthday, passing down both the silk and the stories it carries. Your Grandma Grace would love seeing you take care of her roses, he tells her. Both of them would, Katherine adds softly, and they all know she means both Graces, his first wife and their daughter. Their Grace is expected later today, driving up from Boston with her family for their monthly visit. The house is ready, filled with the scent of Katherine's cookies baking and Grace's lasagna warming in the oven. Sarah and Michael will bring their families too, the house once again full of the joyful chaos of multiple generations. I've been reading Mum's letters again, Sarah had told them last week. It's amazing how she saw all this coming, how she knew love would find a way to bring us all together. The morning sun breaks through the clouds, illuminating the gravestones. Harold touches the 3 rings that still hang from his chain. Grace's, Katherine's original ring, and his new wedding band. Each represents a different kind of love, a different chapter in their story. I've been thinking, he says to Katherine as Emma explores nearby headstones, about what Grace wrote about love. Multiplying. She wasn't just talking about romantic love, was she? Katherine shakes her head. No, I don't think so. Look at what's grown from all this. The love between siblings who didn't know they were siblings, between grandparents and grandchildren, between families chosen and born. Like the roses, Emma calls from nearby, proving she's been listening. How you can take one bush and make lots of new ones from its branches. Harold and Katherine exchange smiles. Out of the mouths of babes comes wisdom that would make Grace proud. A car door slams in the distance, Sarah arriving early to help with dinner preparations. Soon the cemetery will fill with their extended family, all coming to pay respects before gathering at the house to celebrate life and love and connection. "Ready to head back?" Katherine asks, touching Harold's arm. He looks at the gravestones, the one that holds Grace's earthly remains and the one that will someday hold his and Katherine's. But more than that, he looks at the love that has grown. From loss, the family that has bloomed from grief, the connections that have flourished in unexpected soil. "You know what Grace would say," he replies with a smile. Katherine and Emma answer in unison, quoting the words they all know by heart. Love isn't diminished by being shared. Sometimes it's multiplied. They walk home together through the morning. Light, 3 generations heading toward a house full of love and memory and promise. Behind them, the new gravestone catches the sun, its rose engraving gleaming like a beacon, reminding all who pass that love knows no boundaries. Not time, not death, not even the human heart's capacity to grow and change and bloom again. In Grace's garden, the roses continue their eternal cycle of growth and renewal, tended by many hands, cherished by many hearts, multiplying season after season in an endless celebration of love's ability to transcend all boundaries and bloom in its own perfect time.